She was the intern that was too nervous to read the agenda out loud. Now she speaks to thousands. Welcome back to the Trailblazer Pod. I'm your host Faye, and each week I bring you stories of Jewish women who are paving bold paths. This week, Miriam Sheril joins me. She's the Brooklyn-born tomboy who took apart computers in the AOL era. The Orthodox Jewish woman who spent 15 years at the Federal Reserve Building, FedNow. And the woman who'll tell you every senior person in a room has imposter syndrome too. Let's dive in. Oh, and hit follow and subscribe. You don't want to miss what's coming. Miriam, welcome to the Trailblazer Pod. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I am good. I'm ready.
Me too. So I like to go all the way back with my guests. Like instead of starting at the career they're at, I think going back to childhood really sheds light on the women we become today.
Yeah.
So anything that you'd like to share with us about who Miriam was like a kid? I know you said Brooklyn. Coney Island was the end of the world, but can you share more? Give us more context about what life was like for you.
Yeah. So I'm the baby of five. I am not a typical baby though, as I get told a lot, because I was the baby who like also cooked dinners like when I was in high school
Oh.
because my mother got very busy at work. I do think that a lot of us are influenced a lot by what our mother did.
Mm-hmm.
Whether your mother was working or your mother was a
Yeah.
stay-at-home mom, either influenced to follow or to do the opposite, depending on how your
Exactly.
childhood was, I think. But
Yes.
my mother actually runs my father's law firm, and they are one of
Wow.
those rare couples who managed
Wow.
to run a business together and still be happily married, thank God.
That's beautiful.
I will say, though, having that as an example is probably not the best thing because I don't think most couples can do that. But she always worked. So she
Mm-hmm.
always worked, but because they ran their own business, she also always made time for like the sitter play and the chumash play, and which is not always so doable. So I think
Wow.
that did influence me. And then I was a tomboy, so I very much was not the girly girl, as we will talk about when we talk about what it took for me to adjust to having to be on panels and
Yeah.
just. But that's me. And then interest wise, I was always into computers. So besides for being a tomboy,
Where did that come from?
I don't know. I was a geek. Literally, when we started in the old days, we're like, we had AOL and like it took 25 minutes to like
Mm-hmm.
sign on. And I was that kid. But like by high school, I was like writing web pages for my friend's
Wow.
birthday in like HTML, um, which I don't know why. And I actually went back to look at those. I did my sister's website, which someone actually redid now, but they used the same stuff I did. She's an author, actually, like published in Barnes and Nobles. Um,
Cool.
and yeah, I was very into that. Always knew I wanted to do computers. I actually, while I'm in the tech fintech world, I'm actually now more on the product side. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
really not the tech person, so we can
Right.
talk about how I got there. But I literally wanted to like take apart a computer when I was young and put it back together. And I really
Wow.
don't know. I would not say anyone else in my family is very technical savvy.
That's so crazy. Did you I feel like not many people or not many, let's call it religious women, know about tech, or at least back in those days. Like they're not, breaking and putting computers back together. In
Yeah.
my experience, I also grew up in Brooklyn. Did that make you feel different than like your peers or your friends, or you're just like, this is me?
No, yeah. I was one of those, like, I also think childhood was different than it is now. Like, I have a teenage
Mhm.
daughter, and I just think we were kind of, we weren't as connected all the time with our friends, right? Like, we
Right,
didn't have devices. So, like, what you did, you just did. And then,
right.
you had friends also, but there was a lot of downtime by yourself. So, like,
Hmm.
I was also very into gymnastics. So I had
Oh,
like the
really?
computer in the corner that I was taking apart, and then I like was doing cartwheels and splits in my room
Mm,
24/7. Like,
interesting.
yeah, so it was, no, I didn't feel that. By the time I got to high school, I would say like the group of friends I ended up having and who I'm still friendly with, I think you do, even without realizing it in high school, like align towards people who are sort of like-minded. Like they all
Hmm.
have careers. So, and
Mm,
not everyone in my life has careers. A lot of women don't, which I
interesting.
fully respect. And quite frankly, I think you start off from a career perspective with one mindset. And I'm married almost 20 years now. And so then you look back and you're gonna like this was good, but actually I see other values of the other
Hmm.
point, right? Like so I think it's very interesting. But
Interesting.
my friends all like I have a friend who is a computer programmer actually and has done very well, and I have a friend who actually like is like a scientist who works in like labs. So
Wow.
my group of friends from high school are actually for the most part, all career women, which is
Wow.
interesting.
Okay. So my context is very different than what your context was because that was your group of friends and like that's what you knew. Versus I guess I wasn't that type and so that's not what I, you know,
Right.
like was pulled to, I guess. So interesting how our context. So you're saying you were very career driven, right? And then now looking back 20 years later, you might have a different mindset or a little bit more like
Yeah.
what what was your mindset back then? Was it if
So
I don't have a career, like how was it tied to your identity? Let's
So
ask that.
it's very interesting. I do think I always was kind of like I'm gonna have a career. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and part of that, bluntly, my kids will laugh when I say this, is because I was not a kids person. And so like before I had my first child, I was like, will I love this kid if it's mine?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
I find kids annoying. Luckily, when you have your own, at
It
least for
changes.
me, I mean, you really like, yeah, there's just this. I've always said, like everyone talks about love, right? Like love and relationships, whatever. Love for your child is a completely different
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like literally this person exists and you're like, oh my God, I will literally die
Wow.
for you, right? Like that's so I love them. But I will say I couldn't be a stay-at-home mom. I think it is the hardest job in the world, especially when the kids are really little. Like my kids now are teenagers and I have a 10-year-old, and I find this stage just for me as even though they're teenagers, so much better. They're
Mm-hmm.
humans. If we do vacation, it's a real trip. I like them. They're my friends, to an
You're
extent. I'm
funny. Yeah, yeah.
actually very against like being your kid's friend. I don't think that's the right model. But they're humans that I can interact with and have
Right.
fun with.
You're on a similar level at this point.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
we can do things together. When they were little, like if I had to stay home, frankly, I found it hard to be home like the 2 hour like I would get home by like 6 and then put them to bed by 8. And even those 2 hours I found so draining. And so I don't regret having a career at all. I actually think that it was right for me and it was right for my kids because I currently actually have more time in the evening now in my current job, and I know we'll get there, than I ever did really in my career. And I actually, in some ways, I found it very positive. I've been at this job for 4 years, and it gave me more time. But I look at my 10-year-old who basically had this from 6 to 10, and I can see differences in him than my other
Interesting.
kids. Like my older kids are very independent. Like they are literally, their friends tell them like, we have to figure something out. Okay, can you help? You know how to figure things
Mm-hmm.
out. And that's I think a lot because as much as they had a babysitter and someone always here watching them,
Right.
they had to
Right.
figure it out. And my 10-year-old, like,
That's so
besides for
funny.
the fact that like I'm on top of him every second, because if I'm home, I'm like, why are you doing this? Go outside, go play basketball,
Yeah.
which is like, I think he doesn't have to figure things out as much as they did. So
Right.
I don't regret it. But I will say, you always look back and say like, but
Right.
I
In
had
hindsight.
I
Yeah.
had less time with them, right,
Right.
than I would have if I didn't have my career.
Right.
Especially, I would say like, because there are other things, other careers where you could still work and do stuff and not be home all day if that doesn't work for you, but not be out as much as I was, right? So
Right.
I worked at the Federal Reserve for
You had a
like
very
15
intense
years.
job. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was in the city, so there
Yeah.
was commute there and
Right.
commute back, and that just by default means you're like 7 to 6, 7 to 7,
Right.
and that's a long day. So
Yeah.
pros and cons, but ultimately I'm happy.
Let me ask you this, and I want to preface it by saying that in no way is anything wrong with this, but for some reason society doesn't talk about these conversations. And were you always this open about saying like, I didn't know if I'm gonna like kids. I didn't know. Like even those
Yeah,
2 hours,
I
is
was I was always very open about it, maybe to my detriment. I mean, I've definitely had some conversations where people were like,
it like threw them off.
yeah, and I'm just kind of like, I mean, it doesn't
It's the
make me a
truth,
bad
right?
person. Like,
Yeah.
I was worried before I had kids. I was not the kid who wanted to babysit when
Yeah.
I was a teenager. Like, that's just who I am. And then I'm very happy to say, no, I loved my children very, very much. But those times were not easy for me. Like, I found those years very,
Yeah.
very difficult. I really did. Not
Yeah.
because I loved them any less, just because that's not my nature. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think one thing about me is that I'm a little too honest and open as a default layer. Like what you get is what you get, and I'll just share it
Yeah.
openly. And that can come with some ramifications. I guess the other thing is also when I was dating, like one of the things that my husband at the time I think was most interested in was the fact that I was pretty like I will have a career. Like I'm not looking to be a stay-at-home mom. I'm not looking for you to take on all financial burden and I have to take on
Right.
all home burden. And it goes both ways. Like it
Right.
wasn't just that he was looking for a partner on the financial stuff, is I was looking for a partner
Right.
on the stuff that, almost by default falls to women all the
Right.
time. And
Right.
I was like, no, I don't want it to all be me having
Yeah.
to entertain little kids and do that all the time. You need to partner with me on that. But at the same
Wow.
time, I'm going to partner with you on, money.
Yeah. It's pretty cool though that you knew that at that age, because a lot of us learn this, and I'm not speaking for myself because I'm similar to you, but a lot of people that I've talked to learn this once they're in it, right? And they're like,
Yeah.
oh man, like I don't want this type of life, and they almost have to self-correct rather than being proactive and aware of it. So it's
And when
amazing.
you're already married, like
Yeah.
that can also be harder, right?
Right.
Because if your husband had one
Yeah.
expectation and that was a really strong expectation
Yeah.
on his part. So I definitely know women who, had a harder time also where they thought they'd be happy, stay-at-home mom, doing
Yeah.
all that, whatever. But like what people really don't realize about being a stay-at-home mom is it's a really hard job. Like all
Yeah.
those funny memes that are out there that everyone laughs about, they're so true. Like if anyone had to like if that was a job description,
Yeah.
nobody would ever apply, like, ever. And there's no pay. Like it's really hard and
Yeah.
it's a lot. And so I think there are some women who actually realize once like they get started
Yeah.
and they have kids, like, oh, like this is making me unhappy. But then it's a conversation, right? To say, hey, I actually want to get a job or do something. But for the guy, that means stepping up in some ways that maybe they weren't ready for. They didn't.
Right.
They're very happy saying like, no, I will take on the full financial burden. I
Right.
don't want to do these stuff at home. So
Yeah.
I am lucky, honestly, that I kind of knew that early, and also my husband did. So, like, we
Right.
went into it with open eyes. And again, like in the Jewish firm world, I don't know that, like, I used to think we were really behind. I would be like, oh, in our world, like, all the guys are like completely not, open to like picking up responsibilities for the woman. And like, I used to joke when we were earlier in our marriage, like his friends would be like, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to do this. We're going to do blah, blah, blah. And he was always the one who was like, okay, I'm going to check with Miriam. And they'd be like, what? Like, what?
Yeah. Why are you checking with your wife?
Right, and he was like, because she works also. Like
Yeah.
I can't just assume that Shabbos afternoon I get to nap the whole day. That's she needs a nap also. So
Right.
I used to think that that was like in our world, and I was like, wow, we're so behind. But I will say in my career, because I mostly don't work with from Jews,
Right.
I don't even work with Jews a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's not true. Like I've heard from so many women, not Jewish, not religious, not anything, that they kind of all still face it. So I do think that in some cases it's better. My current company, I will say, which is UK based, I've seen the best. Like the
Mm-hmm.
men are constantly talking about the fact that they are running to do carpool or running to do this or running to
Wow.
do that, which is
Different
interesting.
culture.
In the at the Fed, I barely heard that. Like it
Mm-hmm.
was really still the woman when
Yeah.
COVID hit, and at that point I was pretty senior at the Fed, and we were running the FedNow program, which was like very high pressure. The leadership at the time was like doing all these meetings to say, don't worry, nothing's going to change. We're still going, going, going. You don't have to worry about your jobs. And it was like great messaging from that perspective.
Yeah.
At least four women called me for advice. And they were like, hey, like I'm hearing all this, but like they're not saying anything about, and we are going to support you and make sure you have the time because she's like, they were all like, we don't want to fall behind here because of this, but like also our kids are all home.
Right.
And guess who that is mostly falling on?
Right.
Them, right? And
Right.
I will give the Fed credit though that I actually reached out to the person running Fed now, who was the first vice president of the Boston Fed. And I
Wow.
said, I just want to give some feedback as a woman, what people have been telling me. Like, I
Yeah.
think the messaging is great. We do want to make sure people know their jobs aren't at risk. But some of the women are feeling like they're not hearing that they will also be supported as
Right.
they need to balance things right now. And they're not going to be able to work from 8 to, 9 p.m. like a lot of the guys were doing because
Yeah.
they were bored.
Yeah.
And he took it and he went out with like
Wow.
updated information. And so I see a lot of positivity, like I
Yeah.
have to be honest, but there is still differences between just what women have to do ultimately at home,
100%.
even if they have a career.
Yeah. 100%. So you were mentioning the Federal Reserve a lot
Yeah.
and the FedNow program. So let's talk about that. How did you? I know you started as an intern, right? And then you ended up staying
Yeah.
quite a long time. So could
Yeah.
you
I
share
will,
that
I
process?
will, I will say this. I have so much like Hakara. Like my entire career has been so clearly from Hashem. And I know it sounds like a line, but like you'll hear it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there is no way for me to look at it and be like, oh, it's because I'm so amazing. That's how like my career has clearly. So I was majoring in computational mathematics, which by the way is literally just computers and math, but it sounds way cooler.
It sounds
Um,
so cool.
it sounds so good. Every time I say it, they're like, woo, and I'm like, it was computers and math, and they just called it computation. But anyways, my mother's friend's son worked at the Federal Reserve. And
Okay.
he randomly was like, I was looking for like internships, and he like randomly, he was like, well, I'll send it to the vet. I don't know if it'll do anything. And he just like submitted it as like a potential intern. They called me. It was for January 2008. That's when my 2009,
So right
2009.
after the 2008 crash.
Right after the crash, they were actually in a hiring freeze. The only thing they could bring in is interns. January is not when internships start, but when interns had quit and they were like desperate for someone in this like weird tech support area, like literally just to like, it was like Windows upgrades and stuff like that group. And they called me, and on my interview, the guy said, he told me after, the reason I got the job is because they went to look at the website that I had written for my sister, which I had put as like a thing, and they were like, very like, you already like coded an HTML website, like you're a go-getter, we're gonna bring you in. So that's how I
Wow.
got into the job. Then the internship was supposed to be for like, I don't know, 4 months or something, and that was it. And they were still in a hiring freeze. So it was gonna be like, you
Bye.
know, and then my boss was like, no, no, no. Like, if you're willing to continue as an intern, like for a few more months, I will try, like, I will push that, like, one of the first hires has to be you. So I did, because frankly, I was still in school. And then they got me through. And that's how I got my
Wow.
first job there. Like, they finally got to the point. And it was like she really had to push and fight. Like, we need to open up hiring. We need to hire Miriam. Like, again, for like Windows upgrades. Like, my job was to go to meetings and like read an agenda out loud. Like, I was so impressive. So why she pushed so hard. And that's how I started at the Fed.
Wow. Okay, and then talk me through, you don't have to go through every year, but like being that intern working on those, you're saying not so glamorous parts of it,
Yeah.
then kind of being responsible and part of the team that built FedNow. First of all, can you share what that is for people that are not in the
Yeah.
payment space or in the fintech space, and like that trajectory of getting there, like how you evolved through it?
And also, like, again, where like I just see Hashem. Like, there's just no other, right?
Yeah.
So I will explain Fed now in a minute, but essentially a boss came in for my current, like where I was. Her name was Jean, not Jewish, married to a Jewish guy actually,
Oh.
but literally I call her my work mommy. Like she was one of those mentors who I just from work ethic, from prioritizing work and life. Like she had
Hmm.
2 kids and she made it very far at the Fed and she was there over 30 years and she went all the way up to
Wow.
SVP. But like and she was very interested in supporting me as a working mother and like
Hmm.
giving me advice, like not just working as hard as she could,
Right.
but helping me think about those and like pointing out things to me that like I wouldn't even think of
Mhm.
sometimes. Like when I took mat leave and she was like, don't come back so fast. Like you can start off remote. Like you're gonna regret it even if you think you don't, right? And that
Hmm.
yes or no, and depending on the circumstance. But she came in, she ran our group for like a little bit. I got along really well with her, and then she left. She went to within the Fed. Within the Fed, you can do a lot of things. It's one of the
Hmm.
very nice things, especially if you're in technology, because you could support payments, you can support markets, you can support economics, you could like there's a lot going
Right.
on there. But she went to payments. She went to the wholesale product office, which
Hmm.
runs kind of the FedWire system. So like if you buy a house and you're wiring money, that goes through the FedWire Federal Reserve System. And I actually reached out to her and I was like, if you ever have something in your group, like I just want to work for you again.
Wow.
And she made a role for me. She didn't have a role, she made a
Oh
role.
my
So
gosh.
again, like, so she made a role and then I went to work for her. And then this weird thing happened where I became a total payments geek. I still don't know why. I still don't know why it's interesting to me, but like I
Hmm.
went to that group, I started supporting FedWire.
Hmm.
I was like very into it, like very geeky. Like I'd start talking about stuff and my husband would be like, I find you very interesting, but like also how money moves, like that he's like, I don't care.
That's
But
so
like,
funny.
and then in that group, I moved up pretty fast. So like I got
Wow.
very into it. I was technical savvy, but business savvy. So I became that like
Mm.
liaison
Like the
between the
bridge.
technology team. Yes, I became
Mm.
that bridge, which is always a very valued role. And
Right.
slowly but surely moved up into more like the strategy and thinking about modernizing FedWire and all of those things. And then when the Fed decided that they were going to do FedNow,
Hmm.
and FedNow, just to your point, it's think about like Zelle, but for banks. So it's a way of moving money instantly from my
Hmm.
account to your account.
Hmm.
But where you can do that with Zelle for smaller dollar amounts and you're using an alias for large amounts, nothing like that existed.
Right.
FedWire exists, but it's not 24/7. It doesn't happen in seconds. If you've ever sent a wire, there's all sorts of, right? So this allows for like 24/7 bank
Wow.
movement, me to you, me to my other account, like all the time. So like places where I've seen this already used is like if I have a brokerage account and I have a Chase account, getting money from a Chase account to my brokerage account could take
Right.
like days. But
Right.
now you can do it like that. So if there's a stock you want to buy, like funding, defunding, things like that. When the Fed decided to do that, what they did is they went to the wire team, that was us, and the ACH team, which ACH is
Mm.
like your paychecks or whatever, and they like hand selected a few and said, do you want to be part of the team to do
Wow.
this? Which is really cool. And I will say, I had just been thinking about leaving the Fed because there is
Oh.
something about if you're at the Fed for a very long time, you don't leave, first of all.
Mm.
And also, you just feel like maybe you haven't experienced the real world. Like the Fed is very unique in how it's structured and how it makes money or
Mhm.
doesn't have to make money always, and all
Yeah.
it doesn't run like a private sector
Right.
bank or company. And so I was just thinking about that. But then they offered me this and I was like, okay,
It's
well,
like
hold on.
they read your mind. They're like, you're not going so fast.
I was like, no, 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 I will do this for a few years. This is really, really cool.
Wow.
And it was, especially when we got started, it was like the most agile
Mhm.
program for the
Like a
Fed.
startup within the Fed now
It was
type
like a
or
startup within the
yeah.
Fed, which was very cool. And I got to do things that in all my years, no matter how senior I got, they didn't let me do. Like I will always remember when the person who runs it called me and he was like, Bank of America wants to talk. Can you call them? And I'm like, you
Wow.
want you want me to call Bank of America? Like
That's
I
so
was on
cool.
FedWire for years and I was like I had to get like 17 approvals to just even like give
Yeah.
you a message. And I did. I called
Yeah.
Bank of America and I went through things like it was very, very cool. So that
Like
was
no red
fun.
tape, I'm sure, right? Like everything was
I mean, it's the Fed. There was red tape, but very little red
okay.
tape.
Okay.
But I did it for
Comparatively.
3 years. I also
Hmm.
grew significantly in that role. Like that was my shift to
Hmm.
fully being a product person
Hmm.
and to having actual teams that I managed. Because before then,
Wow.
I always matrix managed. Like I was the project
Hmm.
manager. I made things happen, but I didn't have direct reports. And on FedNow, I quickly started to. By the
Wow.
time I left, I had 17 people working for me with like
Can I ask
agile
how old you
teams.
were? Is that a personal question?
No. I mean, it is a personal question, but you could
Not
still
right
answer.
now, but how old were you when you were doing Fed Now?
Fed now? Oh God, now I have to do my math.
You're good at math though, right, Miriam?
32.
Okay.
I was 32 when I started
Okay.
the now program. So
So
yeah,
that's kind of young to be doing something so, I mean, you're literally at like cutting edge technology, right? You're leading teams, you have people reporting to you.
it was
Like,
great.
did you ever have imposter syndrome or you were like,
Oh, I always have imposter
really?
syndrome. I think anyone who says they don't have imposter syndrome is lying. Like we all have imposter syndrome, and it's not just women, by the way. Men have imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I
So,
agree.
totally had imposter syndrome. Yeah, all the
How
time.
did you, and I ask this because like I know a lot of us, most of us do, like you're saying, like what advice would you have to somebody who's kind of starting this? It doesn't even have to be at this level, but just doing something they're like, am I the right person for this? Like, why me? How did you just keep going?
You know what? I think one is to think about, like, really push yourself on why you're thinking that. A
Mhm.
lot of people think that because they look around and they hear all these people talking. They're like, well, they're so much cooler, better than me. And if you like stop and pause and listen to people, you kind of realize like nobody actually really knows what they're doing. Like they know it to a point, but like not at the details that they're
Right.
presenting themselves at. And like sometimes I would do that. Like I was sitting in a meeting with all like the leadership that was like much more senior than me and be like, wait, what? What did you just say? Like, that doesn't actually make sense. It sounded beautiful, but like,
Yeah.
what? So that
Sounded
was like,
like poetry, but
it sounded fabulous. But
yeah.
so that's one thing. I think also like give yourself some credit for what you actually do well. Like,
Mhm.
so as opposed to thinking about all the things that like, oh, but like that person was like
Mhm.
presenting to banks, and it's like, okay, but this thing, this piece specifically. So like for me, it was like the actual like the teams that reported into me were the product owners who then had like agile teams actually coding stuff,
Right.
right? And I was like, I know tech pretty darn well.
Mhm.
So like actually this aspect of just like making sure we're getting them the right requirements and we're
Mhm.
building the right thing, like I'm pretty good at that.
Mhm.
Like, give yourself credit for that. Even if
Right.
I turn around and I have to go present to some huge thing, and I was like, that's where I had the most imposter syndrome. So just so you
Really?
know, I was terrible,
But that's
terrible.
like you do it so much now. You're like
I
speaking and you're
my husband likes to tell me all the time. When I started as that intern, and my job
Mhm.
was to read the agenda at a meeting
Yeah.
once a week, like that was the job. 3 days leading up to that, I didn't stop going to the
Mhm.
bathroom. I was
Mhm.
a nervous wreck. Literally, I would like
Wow.
stand up with my paper, be like, the agenda today is. And now I literally have had to go
Oh
on
my
stage in
God.
front of 1,000 people. So he just,
Wow.
and my husband's like Mr. Extrovert. And like
Hmm.
his dream is to be like on podcasts and like what, like when I went to Form 3 and I started doing a lot more of this, which is
Yeah.
a company, he's been like every time I have to do like a webinar, a panel, like get invited to speak, he's like, I can't. Why you? Why you? Why not me? And he wouldn't get, he would just be like, woohoo.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah,
You guys sound hilarious.
but I was not like that.
Yeah.
So I would own it. I'd be like, okay, so I'm not going to be the best at
Yeah.
that at the start. I'll get there, but like I would shake in meetings and you
Yeah.
could hear it. And that's never ideal, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
I feel like, first of all, this is great advice, but I feel like as women, we tend to not tune into those things that we're good at because we
Yeah.
almost like we almost don't want to be like confident or God forbid, cocky or egotistical. Like I don't know if you know the study. I think it was Harvard. Like women don't check off 1 out of 10 boxes on a job application and we don't apply, and men it's like they check off 1 box and they apply. It's that type of thing. And it's
Yeah.
kind of what you're saying. It's like, wait, 1 second, but you're really good at this thing just because you're not perfect at this other thing.
I do think there is something to like how women and men are so different.
Hmm.
I always find it hysterical how confident men are at work. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're not good at their job,
Right,
but it's
right.
literally if they are good at one thing, they're like, "Oh my God, you should promote me. I don't know why I'm not getting paid more,"
Yeah.
right? And like women are the complete opposite.
Yes,
We can be
yes.
amazing at everything, but if one thing's like not perfect, we're like, "Well, that's why you shouldn't promote me,
100%.
obviously, because
Yeah.
I'm not
I'm not
amazing."
ready. I'm not ready.
Right. And so it's like the complete opposite. And
Yeah.
I don't know that I ever, like, I am terrible about asking for promotions or
Really?
pushing. That is not my strong suit, is something I still continue to work on.
That's
Um,
interesting to me because you were saying you say it how it is. So to me it's like that personality
but
would
the
be
say it had it, but think about what we just said before, like say it as it is. And so
I'm not ready. I
I
don't have
say it
the
as is like, well, but I do see that I have this
wow.
constructive feedback to work on, right?
Mm,
Whereas like men will just ignore it.
right.
They'll be like, yeah, sure, whatever, that doesn't matter though,
Right.
but look at this.
That's
So
such a good point.
yeah, it's not, that's still for me not an easy thing.
Wow. That's very interesting. But like interestingly, like you were saying, these opportunities kind of came to you, right? I mean, you did message this mentor and say, if you have a job opening, like
Yeah,
please
so I
consider
think
me.
there's the Gestalt piece is there, right? Like
Yeah.
I did message that
Yeah.
mentor. I did like in my current job. So when they hired me, like the expectation that I would run product or whatever, but like from a title perspective, it was senior product manager because they were
Mhm.
just starting in the US. Like I did pretty quickly once I realized what I was doing, say, hey, I'm playing ahead of product role. Like let's
Mhm.
talk about that.
Right.
But again, then they went and did it. Like there was a lot of hush. Even how I got job at Foreign Police. So one thing is like when you work at the Fed, you don't build a huge network because it's
Right.
very insulated for the
Right.
most part. A colleague of mine at the Fed, who's the nicest guy, he like knew that I was. So it's one of the reasons I left, just to say, is like that whole like agile that
Yeah.
changed. 3 years later, there were like
Mm.
300 people just on
Mm.
FedNow. I told them when I left, like my job at the beginning was 80% work I loved, 20%
Mhm.
like the politics. By the time I left, it was 80% the politics, like
Got it.
stroking this ego, stroking that ego, making sure this one was happy,
Right.
20% actually doing my job. Plus,
Right.
I was working like 15 hours a day.
Wow.
And their solution was like, we'll hire more, we'll hire more. I'm like,
Mhm.
you're not, you're making it worse. Every
Right.
person you hire is another person I am now responsible to make sure they
You have
succeed.
to manage more now. Yeah.
So this person knew that I was interested. He
Mhm.
was very well connected, and he really connected me with his network. Like for
Wow.
no reason. Like I'm saying, like not that that's such a hard thing, but it takes effort, and he's also putting his name behind
Yeah.
it. But he connected me with multiple opportunities that I went and spoke to, and that's how I got my job. So like even
Wow.
that, like I just see Hashem's
Yeah.
hand in it because like I see it now when I have people who are like looking for a job or looking for work. Like it takes effort to
Yes.
go and say like, oh, let me try to
Yeah.
connect you with people. Let me
Yeah.
do that work. Like you didn't really have to do that. We weren't that close.
Yeah.
We were friendly, but
It is
so
going out of the way for
it's
sure.
going out of his way
Yeah.
to help me, which for no benefit to him, right?
Yeah. And
So
it's interesting because you keep saying like Hirschtalis, but also Ashgacha practice, and it's always like the balance of doing but not doing too much because when you push it too much, it doesn't happen. And
right.
then also doing enough where you're not just like, hey, like whatever comes to me, right? You have to like really just find
It's
that
funny
balance in the two.
what you just said. So since October 7th, I've been doing like these daily bitachon lessons.
Hmm.
Sometimes I feel like sometimes it feels stupid when you do them, like this one lesson a day, and you're just like, what's this doing? But somehow I think it seeps in.
That's so
But
nice.
recently, what the lessons are about is actually that it's like you have to do your part, but actually not above and beyond your
Right.
part. And part of the reason for that, according to like the book I'm reading now, is that because Hashem actually says like if you trust me, I will help you.
Mm,
But when you stop trusting me, I'm not helping you. So when
that's
you
so
go
interesting.
above and beyond, you're kind of being like, okay, Hashem, I believe
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
but really I'm going to make this
Right.
happen. So
Yeah.
it's like do enough because you're supposed to do your part, but then be like, but also like, I know I'm
Right.
not making this happen. Like you're making
Yeah.
this happen. So like I did this. Now you
Yeah.
do the rest.
Yeah. It's a
And
hard
I
thing to do though, right? It's
very
like,
hard.
yeah,
Very
that's
I
cool.
think in
That's
my career, I found it easier because I've always seen.
hmm
I find it harder to do in life, actually, because in life, like, because life matters more to you. But like, if I have a kid trying to get into a school or things like that, like,
push,
those
push,
are the things
push.
where I find it much harder. Like, and I'm also like very
Yeah.
type
I'm
A, so
sure.
I could do this,
I'm
and I
sure.
could do that, and I could do this, and here's 7 more things we could do, and we could do
I'm
this.
not shocked, Miriam.
Yeah,
I'm not shocked.
very type A. I like so, but my husband isn't, right? And so he's
Mm.
more the type that I like. We did this and we did that,
Ah, that's a nice balance.
up to hush up.
Yeah. Wow.
But
Okay,
I
so
find it harder in my personal life for sure.
yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Why did you choose Form 3? Like, was there something about that company that attracted you to
Yeah,
it?
this is actually the thing I find myself giving the most advice about lately.
Mm-hmm.
It's people who are thinking about like changing their
Mm-hmm.
career, and so one thing is because I was working such hard hours and because it became very political at the Fed, I was finding it a bit toxic. Like it was getting to me emotionally. So when I was deciding to leave, I made like literally like it sounds stupid, but like a checklist, like
Mm-hmm.
these are the top 5 things to me.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm looking for. It's very easy when you're out there interviewing to kind of confuse yourself. Someone starts throwing a lot of money at you and you're like, ooh, what?
Right.
Right. But I
Right.
really was like, this is what I'm going to analyze every job against. And frankly, at that time, Baruch Hashem, it was not about money. I took a pay cut when I switched to Form 3, actually, which is, I think,
Interesting.
one of the hardest things people have in doing, right? But I was
Right.
like, number one is I need better hours. I want to be home more. I want to be around more. And I was working remote, but I was literally like signing on at 8,
Yeah. It
signing off
doesn't
at
mean
6,
you're available just because you work remote. Yeah,
running
100%.
downstairs, feeding a kid, running down back upstairs, being in
Wow.
my office, and like my daughter, who's now 16, at the time was 12. It was like pretty key years.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't around, and like when you get to those years with your kids, like once they hit like 12, you need to, as much as you can, be there when they walk in the door, because they walk in the door and you get and then they're done and then they disappear. So I came down 2 hours later, she wasn't talking anymore. Like that was not
Yeah, the moment
right.
passed.
The moment passed. And when I switched to this job and I was around more, that's what I got. She would walk
Wow.
in and then
Yeah.
that was it. But all of a sudden you were there. Now, mind you, it took her like 1 year to be like, maybe you should go back to your other job. Teenager. She was like,
Yeah, yeah.
we're
So
good.
odd.
We connected. You can move.
That's so funny.
But I will say that I put that as number one. Number two was culture. Like I really, because I got an offer from somewhere else before Form 3, and I was like, even the way the whole interview, I was like, no, 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 this is going to be the same, like
Right.
executives with egos, and they're all trying to like,
You like felt it in your bones.
not like it happened in the interview process. Like one very senior guy was like, oh, I love her, but not for this job. We're going to offer her this job. And I'm like, I didn't apply for that job. Like
Oh.
some of those things. And then Form 3, when they were interviewing me, like they really sold me on the culture. And I even told myself it's not going to be as good as they're making it sound. Like there's just no way. But even if it's 50% as good, this is what I'm looking for. And it
Interesting.
really was. I had
Wow.
so many fun stories my first 6 months where like I was still acting like my Fed, and like they would look at me and be like, you're not a Fed. Like like I went to a board meeting where like I ended up doing a lot of talking,
Yeah.
and they gave me like it went really well. And my first reaction was to go like message the CEO and message the CPO. Like, I'm so sorry that I spoke so much. I hope it was okay and I didn't need to take over. Both of them separately called me and they were like, what meeting were you on? Like what you did your job, they approved the money, couldn't be happier. What's the sorry? Like they were so confused. And then I messaged my husband. I was like, this is what it's supposed to feel like when you do a good job. Like everyone's just happy
Wow.
as opposed to like this one's ego was upset and this one felt like I, stole his thunder. And so that shift,
Wow.
and it made a huge difference in my life, like just emotionally. I stopped like going into Shabbos stressed and only decompressing by like Shabbos lunch just to be stressed once it's Shabbos again. Like that went away. So those were the
Wow.
key things, and that's why I chose Form 3.
The sorry thing is so I think common for women. Like I find myself and again I'm on LinkedIn already for a while and so I see people like you, right? And that's why I think it's so important to talk about these things. Saying, don't say I'm sorry, say this instead. Don't say, whatever, the negative words where it's like you're apologizing or you're whatever, and change it to something that, maybe a man would say, right? Like
Right.
checking, like, not can you please do this? Like, I need this done by today. Like, just the change in the language. And I now, because I'm listening to people like you saying this, I'm actually very aware when I do it. And I literally find myself typing and then like deleting and being like, no, don't say that. You don't need to
Right.
say that.
And
Yeah.
I always don't like the very strong, like, don't do, don't whatever.
Hmm.
Like, it's all, sometimes you play the game. Like, I happen to like playing poker, which is something
Oh,
that, like,
really?
everybody finds hysterical, but, like, yes, I love
Hmm.
poker. And sometimes, like, you play the game. So if and when you need to do that to get something done, like, the person you're working with, if, like, okay, if I sell this idea, it's
Right.
going to go. Yes, sometimes, like, you have to do that
Strategically.
strategically. But for the
Yeah.
most part, yes, we tend to use language that's like very degrading. Like we
Yeah.
downgrade ourselves.
Yes.
And actually, it was a woman who worked for me who was the first to point it out to me.
Really?
She actually messaged me after this was on FedNow. I was ready, like really considered one of the most critical people on FedNow at the time. Like knew what we needed to do, was
Yeah.
responsible. And she's like, on these meetings where like everyone's listening to you, when you're like, oh, this might be a stupid question, she's like, you're downgrading your own value
Wow.
in front of everyone, and
Wow.
it'll ultimately make other people devalue you. She's like, as opposed to like everyone looks to you as like the important person, she's like, when you say those things,
Wow.
it's causing a change in perception that's unnecessary and not valuable for
That's
you.
so cool that she said that to you, though.
Yeah, and she worked for me at the time, so like also to have
Wow.
but she was, yeah, she
Wow.
pointed it out to me, and it's when I really decided, like, okay, try to actively change that. Like, not get mad at myself when I still
Right.
did it here or
Right.
there because but really there were times that I was like gonna say something. I was like, no, no, no. Like, I'm not gonna be like, is that a stupid question? I'll be like, I just want to clarify
Right.
and then move
Right.
forward.
Right.
So it depends why you're doing it. Now, sometimes if you really are not sure if your question is right, then you do say it that way. Like
Right.
there are times where I'm like, I have no idea what this person's saying, but I might sound like an idiot. I'm gonna be like, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. This is probably a
Yeah.
stupid question, but
Yeah.
not when it's not true. Like
Yeah.
when it came to the FedNow stuff,
You knew
I
what
mean,
you were, yeah.
I knew it better than every single
You were the
person.
expert.
So
Yeah.
all I was doing was trying to like make nice to make that
Right.
person not
Yeah.
feel bad. And again, I'm not trying to make someone feel bad, but didn't
Yeah.
have the same effect.
It's so funny because I started saying when I feel like I have a question that may be stupid, I always start with like, no question is a stupid question, right? And like that kind of I'm like, right, guys? And then I ask the question and it's
Right.
like, yeah, no question is stupid. But I kind of like, that's also because of the work I'm doing myself. Like, at least make it funny or like, human
Make it
instead
less
of,
about like I'm asking a stupid question, more about like
exactly.
this should be the approach and model we're all using. You should
Exactly.
ask whatever you need to ask. Right.
Yeah, yeah. So you kind of alluded to this, but when you joined Form 3, you started talking a lot more, presenting a lot more, panels, conferences. That's how I found you, right? On one of the posts about you. How did this come about? And like you're going from the girl who literally went to the bathroom for 3 days in a row before
Yeah.
presenting as an intern to, now this. How did this happen?
Yeah, so I will say so the Form 3 role was to really like get the product strategy going, get all
Hmm.
that, whatever. Because we were starting out in the US, like anything they can do from a marketing perspective is very helpful and important to them.
Right.
I did have some people who knew me from the Fed days because one of the things we did on Fed Now was just kind of like pilot calls where I would be on video for a lot of them,
Mm.
like explaining things to like 500 people, all who were not on video, by the way.
Oh my gosh.
So like the first conference I went to after I left the Fed, these like random people were like, "Oh, Miriam, so how's Fed now?" And I'm like, "Who are you?" Like
Oh my
I was on
gosh.
video, but you weren't. I have
That's
no idea who
crazy.
you were. It was also hard for me though because I had to be like, "Oh, I'm not at the Fed," and they'd be like, "Oh, where are you?" And I'd be like, "Form 3," and they're like, "Who? What?" Because
Yeah,
we were
like
so
that
new.
like status type of
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
that was I
That's
have to
interesting.
say, and as much as I didn't think like my ego was into like
Mhm.
big part of like being at the Fed, like it was hard to go to these
Yeah.
conferences and be like,
That's
who knows
really
me?
interesting.
Yeah. But then so I think what happened mostly is that they were looking to get on panels and to conferences and things like that. And people knew my name. So they
Mm.
would approve. So that it kind of started organically from like, and also my role was as much as it was product, I was helping kick off the US. So anything they needed me to do, anything that could help us get out there made sense. Um, and then I started doing them. Apparently I did them well. I will say this. I never, like the first few, I didn't think I did well because I heard myself shaking because I was very nervous leading
Mhm.
up to those and like getting on those stage. And like, I didn't enjoy it because I would spend like the whole day being
Right.
like
Right.
if I got a speaking spot and I'd be like, when is it? Please tell me it's like on the first day. Please tell me it's on the first day. Otherwise,
Yeah.
so that's like how it started. But I got good feedback from them, and company was, Form 3 was happy with them. So then they would submit me for more and things like that. And so I will say, like, the only way to get past the nerves is to do them. So at this point, I thank God I don't get so nervous leading up to them. Every once in a while, there's something that like ups the game. So like I did Money 2020, which is like a huge conference in Vegas. And like again, I was already at the point where like I wasn't so nervous about these things. And then I go to Money 2020 and it's like you have to go
Next
back.
level.
You have to go backstage, they mic you up, they call out your name, you have to walk out. I was like, oh my God. And all of a sudden like the nerves started coming back. So like they keep every time I feel like, oh I'm good, I can just do all these things. It's like then the next thing comes and I'm like, oh God.
But that's
Next
growth, right?
level. That's good. That's
Yeah.
how you do it. Yeah.
It's very cool. I always find it amazing when you see online, like you're saying, you look like you know exactly what you're talking about because you do. You look confident. No one sees the nerves, and then you talk to the person, and you're like, "Oh my God, I almost threw up right before." You're like, "You still feel that way? Like that's crazy."
Yeah. So I
Oh,
and I will say it gets like I don't really for the most
yeah.
part for some of these, which I appreciate because it's not fun feeling that way. But then yes, every once in a while you get to like that next
Yeah.
level thing where you're like, oh no, now I'm nervous again.
But I'm
Great.
sure no one could tell, right? No.
Hopefully. I mean,
Yeah.
apparently that is the feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very hard to believe that when you're the one on stage hearing your voice shake and you're like, nobody's hearing this. Like I clearly sound nervous.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Wow. So I want to pivot a little bit because this podcast is obviously about very career focused and female founders, females in business, females that are just ambitious. But it's also a Jewish podcast,
Yeah.
right? And one of the things I pride myself is having all sorts of Jewish women from all sorts of backgrounds. But you specifically have been very, you even mentioned yourself, like you barely work with any Jews to begin with, right? But you're very open about being a religious Jewish
Yeah.
woman. And I want to start by asking you, like, was this a conscious choice that you made? Or kind of like the other things we talked about throughout the episode, where you're like, this is just me and it just happened and you know, this is how it played out.
It's such a good question. I'm literally having to think back to like being an intern. I think it happened again from Hashem a bit, and I'll tell you why. On my first interview to be an intern at the Fed,
Mm-hmm.
and this looking back on it, I'm like, this is so weird because like this would not actually be okay. The not my boss, the boss's boss. It was like my
Mm-hmm.
second interview. She took me to like a lunch interview and we're sitting there and she's not Jewish, not anything, but like this New York Fed. So there were, I will say this, like my journey was New York Fed. People understood Jewish, mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Holidays, I had some people who would like be like, oh, your wig? Is that a wig? It's very natural looking. Like, like they knew a lot. Then I went to FedNow and it was like cross district. So I'm working people from Kansas City and Atlanta and
Yeah.
all that. And it was like they still knew high holidays, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, whatever, but
Yeah.
not that much more about that. All of a sudden the wig was like, wait, what? And then I went to a UK company and I swear I had to spell Jew for people. I was like,
Really?
yeah, like it is really, I have been very fortunate that I have almost always 100% gotten interest, curiosity, respect and a kind of support. So I haven't faced anything that was really kind of like a difficulty as far as, not to say I've never had some uncomfortable conversations, certain
Right.
things come up and they're like, well, could you, being gay, right? And so I had
Yeah.
a coworker I was very friendly with, and he was a gay man, and he was like, "But doesn't your religious like find this to be an abomination?" And like, so you have to have this conversation to being like, yes, there are certain religious aspects and things that we, believe or we don't support in our community, but that doesn't mean that we hold that on
Right.
you, on other people, But those are not always the easiest. But I've
Right.
never really had anything difficult. But on that lunch interview, she actually said to me, she's like, I thought you were an Orthodox Jewish woman. At the time, I was wearing a bandful. And I was like, oh, I am. And she's like, well, why don't you cover your hair? Which, by the way,
She
just,
challenged you on it?
but like, who does that at an interview? Like, that's so bizarre. But like, all of a sudden, I'm literally applying for like my first job. It's an
Yeah.
internship. And like, the covering the hair thing has already
Yeah.
come up.
How
And
did you react?
I was like, oh, I am actually like, this is a wig and this is the band and this little piece in the front is my hair. And she's like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. Like, we had a whole conversation about it. I actually wonder, I never thought about this, if that triggered why I'm like this. Because all the way up front, someone's already like having discussion with me and it was
Right.
fine. And so part of me was kind of like, oh, so like I can talk about this. Like, it's not weird.
Interesting.
But I have had the covering the hair is probably like my favorite Jewish thing because I've had the best reactions. Like my boss, I did take a walk with him once and it started raining like outside the Fed. And I was like, oh God, we got to go inside. Like this is going to turn into like a rat. Like he was like, what? I'm like, well, the wig, like if it gets wet. They didn't say anything. Two coworkers came to me the next day and they're like, you got to talk to him. He thinks you're dying. Like
He
you
thinks
need
you
to,
have cancer?
yeah, you need to explain to him that this is a religious thing. Like apparently he like didn't want to say anything to be disrespectful, but he went like running around. Did you know Miriam has a wig? Do you know why? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah.
Oh my
So that's
gosh.
like one. I had a very good coworker who ended up being my boss on FedNow, who also I really, when I was at the New York Fed, I just assumed a lot of people knew because a lot of people did know, but a lot of people didn't. She was like in a taxi with me and she was sitting in front of me and I said something. We were like, oh, and I was like, good thing we don't like share hotel rooms. You'd see the wig pop on and off. And the woman next to her like turns to her and looks at me and she goes, I don't think she knows what you're talking about based on the color of her face. So I have had these
Oh my
moments where I
gosh.
just like assume, and
Yeah.
then the person has no clue, and they just are like, "What? Like
Wow.
what's that?" So that's like my favorite one. But other than that, like, yeah, I've always been very open. I share a lot. Like at Form 3, I find it really enjoyable. There's really very little
Mhm.
insight, and so I do a lot of like there's like this photo social wall that they have, or people share stuff. So I always share like holiday things, like hamantaschen that I've made with the
That's so
kids,
cute.
latkes, and I explain what it is, and they do a lot of sharing back, like, oh, that's so funny.
Mm.
We have a tradition. A lot of our stuff comes from Europe. And so, like, I've had, and Form 3 is like in a lot of different countries in Europe.
Mm.
So I've had a lot of people come back and be like, oh, we call that this, we call that this, we
That's
call
so
that
cute.
this.
It's like
So
a
it's,
connecting moment.
yeah, it's been fun. But
It's very cute.
but I'm lucky. And, you know,
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, a lot of people stay, like you were saying as a teenager, you were kind of like attracted to the girls who were interested in similar things, right? And like that's what you were pulled towards, and that became your group. So I feel like a lot of from women, also that's their group, that's what they know. But for you, you're around a lot of people that don't, and so
yeah.
it's almost like this is like it's a very clear identity that you have. How does that play a role for you personally? Like, let's take the external out, but
So
for you.
it's funny because I think I grew up, to your point, like my friends all kind of have careers, but in my more personal life, like here in Clifton, like who I made friends with, that's not the case.
Mhm.
And I'm still really good friends with them. So I think when my kids were younger, it was definitely harder for me. It's just hard because like if your group isn't, and then they're doing lunch stuff or whatever, or they're bringing their little kids with them, they're all sitting at a pool, and like you're never the person who could do that, and your kids can't do that. It causes a little bit more like not tension, just like an inability to like
Right.
really be part of those groups and friendships so
Right.
much. As my kids got bigger, though, that becomes less because like the
Mhm.
kids are all bigger. Frankly, they don't need us. So you know, it's more built around like when everybody's time and schedule can work and stuff like that. So I don't know how much it affects. I mean, the truth is, and this will probably shock you, I am an introvert, like a real introvert, like
Like a
not
real
like
one.
like like a when I have to extrovert or socialize, I will need a day to
Mhm.
decompress after
Mhm.
versus my husband, who if we go out comes back like woohoo,
Right.
what's
He's ready to conquer the world.
yes. And so I call myself like a fake extrovert at work because like in my
Mhm.
career, nobody thinks I'm an introvert. They all
Yeah.
think I'm an extrovert. I do a lot of big personality, get the room
Yeah.
engaged, right? Which I started doing more when I became a manager. It's like I think important to
Mhm.
like keep momentum and excitement and groups
Sure.
talking
Yeah.
and stuff. But so I think that in general, I don't like to socialize a lot. So I'm the friend that they
Yeah.
all make fun of because they'll like go out 10 times a year and they'll be like, which two times are you going to join us, Mary? Or like they did like a girls' trip to Florida. Like I have zero interest, which
Mhm.
not to say that I don't understand why someone would do that. And I think that's great if you want to, but like
Not
between the
for you.
fact that I have to travel for work, which everyone's like, oh, so much fun. Like it was fun the first time. After that, it's no longer fun. Like it's stressful at home because frankly, I'm still the mother and I'm still the
Yeah.
woman. It's flying, which frankly I don't love. And I'm not like going to these places and like building in
Right.
extra time to go exploring. I'm like showing
Right.
up, going to a conference that's usually in some boring hotel, being at the conference, doing my speaking job, doing whatever, flying home. Like this is not
Yeah.
exactly fun. But between that and the trips I try to do with my husband or with my kids, like I have no interest in
Right.
doing like it's just not for me. So
Yeah.
I'm not such a social person to begin with.
Mhm.
So that probably is part of it.
Are you still doing cartwheels in your room?
No, I actually, this is a funny story. I'm not. I wish I was. When my daughter was before COVID, so COVID was like 6 years ago. She was probably like 9, 10. She started doing gymnastics, like
Mm.
here. And I was like so excited, and she wanted me to like teach her stuff. So we
Mm.
started doing gymnastics together, like literally in my living
That's
room,
so cute.
like twice a week. And I was honestly. Like that's the best I looked in forever because gymnastic is like toning and like all of a sudden I was like doing splits again. I was doing cartwheels and
Wow.
round offs. Like we were really, and it was great and I loved it. And it was also something I was doing
Yeah.
with her. Then COVID hit and she lost complete interest. She's never done gymnastics
Mm,
again. So I tried to like do it myself after that and I
it's not the
just,
same.
no, I couldn't motivate myself in this at this age in my living room to start doing
That's
cartwheels
hilarious.
and handstands. But I keep telling myself that I'm going to try again
Hmm.
because there is something. It's like yoga and Pilates plus, like the
I'm
toning
sure.
and the stretching, and I really loved it. Like
That's so
it was one
cool.
of my favorite things when I was younger.
I was asking just to be funny, but it's cute that you actually did
There
read
was an
it.
actual story there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Look at that. Miriam, I could talk to you, I feel like for all day. I have
Yeah.
so much I want to know about you, but I want to end off by just asking you, you've gotten a nice amount of awards. Again, I stalk you.
Well, well, I'll just put this out there. I have been nominated for a lot of
Okay,
awards.
you've been nominated.
And I will say that when you have to go to award dinners,
Hmm.
like being at the Oscars, I think, and you're constantly nominated and then you
Hmm.
never win,
Hmm.
it's actually quite an uncomfortable to be
Okay,
in.
okay.
By the seventh one, I'm like, so the one you just saw
Yeah,
was
yeah.
the first, it's not the first one I won, but it's the first one I won where I was at an award dinner where they announced my name as the
Mm,
winner and then I get to go on stage. And
mm.
I have to admit that I, I will just say, like, these awards don't mean that much to me, if I'm
This
being
is
honest.
my question to you. This.
They're because it's more, they mean a lot to me for the company because it's really like Miriam Sheril and what she's doing at Form
Right,
3, right? It's like this work that we're doing to try to like innovate
right,
and really put good technology out there. So I'm happy for the company's sake. It's not
right.
like me. I feel like, ooh, look at me because I got this
Mhm.
award. But I have to admit that after sitting through so many where my name was not picked, it actually felt very good to hear my name. I was so shocked. I actually have some funny pictures of what I looked like because my
Oh my
boss was
God.
next to me when they actually said my name. Like I was all ready to do this, and I was
Yeah.
like, like that
Oh
was
my God.
literally.
Yeah. You were
Um,
like an autopilot. Like
no,
I get
I
to.
looked like one of those like cartoon characters at the Oscars. Like I was like,
Oh, that's hilarious.
but I don't. It's funny because other people have said that to me also. Like I don't. For some reason, the award itself, like it's not. It doesn't
Hmm.
give me like a personal, That article I think that you read from American Bankers, that's probably the thing that has given me the most like personal feeling of
That's so
accomplishment.
cool.
Because she reached out to say, actually, they submitted me for an award and I was not nominated. And then she reached out and she said, I'm a writer. And while we didn't select you, I found your background as an Orthodox Jewish
Wow.
woman so interesting. I'd love to interview you. And that to me was like something that can show any girl who's like, I really would want to do a career, but
Yeah.
like also kids and family, whatever, something that like kind of gives them like, no, you can. I
Yeah.
don't think you can have it all. I know that's like an old thing, but like I don't think anyone can have it all. But like you can do this and make it work and be happy and
Yeah.
find the right partner to do it with. So that article is probably the thing I'm the most like proud of.
It's so funny because you knew my question before my question. Like my question was going to be, what's the like most proud moment you've had? Was it the awards? Was it not? And you naturally answered that. And I think it says a lot about you, and also the reason why I wanted you on this podcast because it's so much more than being nominated for stuff. It's your entire 360 of who Miriam is, from geeky
But
tomboy little girl to knowing you want a
yeah,
career to like having children and then making it work and moving over, pivoting. Right, there's so many themes in this story that I'm sure we didn't even touch like half of it. That is so relatable to any woman listening, let alone a Jewish woman who's like, wow, she's doing it. Like maybe I can do it too. So
yeah.
I really, really appreciate you coming on.
I
And
was very honored when you reached out. I was like,
oh,
ooh.
stop.
Also, yeah, and more again, like same thing, like because it's like a Jewish woman
Yeah,
thing, as opposed to
yeah.
like a lot of people reach out, which is, we do it for the company about like,
Yeah.
oh, we talk about
No,
that
this
now.
is about you, right? This is about you and like your life and making it work and figuring out what's meaningful to you, and right? It's
Yeah,
more
and
than
like
just
and as part of and like that whole like as an Orthodox Jewish woman, like that
yeah.
piece to me is like the nuance. It's like the thing
Yeah.
that made it hard, but also made it kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. I also laughed a lot, which I didn't expect. You're very funny.
There,
You're very
lots
funny.
of
Yeah.
funny stories. Yeah, this
Thank
was
you
great.
so much, Miriam.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.